Ratchet and Clank are arguably the PlayStation mascots. They are the only ones to survive multiple console generations. Jack never left the PS2 and Sly had a failed comeback on the PS3. If you have only played the newer entries, you might be shocked how different the characters and vibes are in this original entry. Specifically, Ratchet's personality has been shaved down so much that you'd forget he ever had one. Here he's kind of an asshole. This is one of the first games I ever vividly remember beating as a kid. I've dipped in and out of the series over the years, but I've always remembered this one being my favourite. So I decided to replay it again to see if it really is the best in the series, or is it just nostalgia talking. Released in 2002 and developed by Insomniac Games, yes, those people stuck making Marvel games. They have a similar story to Naughty Dog. They had a hit trilogy of games on the PS1 with Spyro. They wanted to prove they could do it again, but bigger. Also, they lost the rights to Spyro, which could have actually been a blessing in disguise, as they went on to create one of PlayStation's longest running franchises. But this first game is surprisingly different from what the series would eventually become. You play as Ratchet and Clank as they must stop Chairman Drek from destroying multiple planets so he can build a new one with parts from the destroyed ones, which is still a sick idea. It's a simple but charming story. What really sets it apart are the characters and their journey. Unlike Jak and Daxter, both leads can actually talk to each other, which immediately gives the story more room to breathe. Ratchet and Clank don't start out as mates. Ratchet starts off by trying to fix a ship so he can leave his planet. Meanwhile, Clank is a defect who escapes his assembly line. He is supposed to be a big killer robot for Drek. He crashes close to Ratchet as he is escaping. They make a deal. Clank will get Ratchet's ship working if he agrees to take him to Captain Quark, so he can warn him about Drek. Clank is naive and wants to do the right thing, whereas Ratchet is more selfish and only wants to do stuff that interest him, like hoverboarding or getting new gear. This creates a really good character dynamic. They constantly have to convince each other to visit planets that don't align with their own goals. They do have a lot of arguments throughout the game, which is something you never see the newer games do, but halfway through the game Quark leads him into a trap. Ratchet sees this coming but Clank falls for it. This leads to the biggest divide between the two. Ratchet will be angry at Clank for almost the rest of the game. He becomes obsessed with getting revenge on Quark. All this makes it land harder when he eventually learns to do the right thing. It's a well done character arc and is the best story of the big three. This is something the newer games are lacking. Ratchet and Clank are too bland in those games. They are the good guys and they do good guy things. But maybe that's what happens when you last as long as they have. This game somehow manages to hit hard when it wants to. Obviously there is the bit at the end where Clank thinks Ratchet has left him and turns around to see if he's still there. He does come back for him because they have become friends now. That lands. My favourite moment is when we're near the end of the game, they come back to Clank's assembly line and speak to his mum. She is just a screen who tells them where to find Drek. Clank says, "I'll try to make you proud, mum." As he is leaving, she types, "You already have." He doesn't see the message. "I'm not crying, you're crying." The game is more humorous throughout. The jokes still hold up. It's helped by the fact you meet so many different characters. Each planet you visit will have one or two unique characters, which gives you a feel for what the rest of the inhabitants might be like. They have a unique personality that helps them stay memorable. My favourite character you meet is Helga. She is a robot with a German accent, and she will absolutely rip into the boys for being slow on an obstacle course. Half the comedy comes from Ratchet being surprisingly rude to absolutely everyone he meets. It's also helped by the pace of the story. You will meet a character, pay them, and move on before you can get bored. I found it super cute that you can meet the tutorial voice after listening to her all game. The things the newer entry lost that this one started is the consumerism satire. This universe runs on money. Characters won't help you out unless you pay them, even if you just save their lives. Why does the series have so many crazy guns? The crazier the guns, the more they can charge you for it. The way you find new planets is by watching infobots, which will often be funny over-the-top adverts for the people of this universe. One of my favourites has Quark saying how he saved so many civilizations, and the image is him plugging a leak with his finger. Even Drek's motivation comes down to money. He's been trying to make a new world because his home planet became too polluted. So you can understand why he is doing it even though it's a bit messed up. Then at the end he reveals he is the one who polluted his home so he could charge his own people to live in a new one. He even plans to do the same so he can keep making money. It's ridiculously evil in the best way. The story is helped by fantastic voice acting all round. I really miss this voice for Ratchet. He sounds like a surfer bro with a bit of edge compared to how generic he sounds now. Quark is also a standout. The animation is really well done as well. Characters are expressive. You can tell Ratchet and Clank are arguing even if you play the game on mute. It's definitely on par with Jak and Daxter, but slightly less cartoony overall. Thankfully, this isn't one of those games where the cutscenes carry the entire experience. Fortunately, the gameplay has aged almost as well as the writing. You will hop to different planets, each with their own platforming and combat challenges with rewards at the end. Ratchet controls well and is fun to move about. I especially like performing his long jump. He is not as fun to control as Jak, as his moves don't flow together like Jak's do. Ratchet does have a glide thanks to Clatch's upgrades, which comes in clutch. I also find it very satisfying to throw the wrench, even though it locks you in place. It is very simple compared to later entries and can feel quite slow. There is no crazy mobility like in Rift Apart, and strafing is something that has to be unlocked. Something the later games do improve on, but the fundamentals are still here. I appreciate that Clank is used a lot in Ratchet's moveset. He will turn his arms into a helicopter, jet or sub to help Ratchet get around. It helps make them feel like a team more than Jak and Daxter ever did. It was also an inspired choice to have levels where they are split up so you can feel how much they do help each other. The main thing that sets this series apart is the weapons. Each game comes with loads of weapons and is no different here. You have the bomb glove that throws explosives, you have the pyrocylinder which is a flamethrower, you get the Visi bomb which lets you control a missile after you have fired it, you got the Morpho Ray which turns enemies into chickens, and there is loads more. Every weapon feels unique rather than just stronger versions of another one. I was still using early game weapons right up until the end of the game. Most modern shooters give you assault rifle number 69. Ratchet gives you a glove that throws tiny robots at people. The creativity even in the first game has to be commended. I also love how every weapon looks cobbled together with nuts and bolts on them. It fits the world well. They all look cheap to make to maximise profits. It fits the retro future aesthetic the game has. It's a tad shame that the basic blaster is probably the best weapon in most cases. What really helps the game feel like an adventure is the choice you get. Each planet will have multiple paths available to you at the start. The game never tells you which is the mandatory path. You would think it's the longest or most difficult path would be the main one, but it's often not the case. Every path rewards you with something useful at the end, like maybe a new gadget or infobot, so all are worth doing. You can meet dead ends as well and will have to return when you have the right equipment. All this makes the planets feel a little bit more real instead of a series of levels. It helps the game has a great variety, from green planets, futuristic cities, space stations, spaceships, and even toxic planets, some with different weather effects. Each area feels different or fun to explore. They're all detailed, colourful and nice to look at. I always like how when you first get out of your ship the camera is pulled back so you can appreciate the view. I can't help but do this in Metropolis. It looks like such a busy city with loads of ships flying in the background. The music is also sick in that level. I also love the retro future aesthetic this game has. It's a strong art direction. You can tell everything has been made on the cheap and they still use CRT screens. It is very charming that this is carried into the menus as well. There's also a massive plus that each planet has unique enemies. This helps each area feel fresh. The game is always introducing something new like grind rails, magna boots or hoverboards. Clank even gets his own playable sections, where he controls even smaller robots. They aren't my favourite sections, but they are nice to have. It truly makes it feel like a Ratchet and Clank game instead of just Ratchet. This helps keep the game exciting as you know you'll have something new to play with soon. It manages to do this without having lots of minigames. There are only really the hoverboard races or spaceship sections, which are a nice change of pace and can be quite challenging. I also love the small sections where Clank becomes a giant. It's a fun role reversal. But you can't use all of your tools all the time because of the goddamn economy. Just like real life, I can't afford anything. It costs money to progress, ammo costs money, and weapons can be expensive. You can't buy everything immediately and will have to make a choice of what to get first. This encourages you to explore to find as much bolts as you can. The game will also not respawn certain boxes so you can't even grind out for bolts. If you want to get everything you'll have to be grinding, which can take ages. It can feel excessively unfair at times. The best weapon in the game is the Rhino. This costs a whopping 150,000, which is absurd. The other most expensive guy is only about 30,000. This is a great game to teach kids they won't be able to afford anything when they're older. You'll want the Rhino because the final boss is shockingly challenging. This took my entire arsenal to beat. Every gun ran out of ammo. I can see why I was so ecstatic when I beat him as a kid. I suppose this is quite a challenging game overall. You won't have a lot of health and enemies hit hard. You don't get invincibility frames when you're hit either, so one mistake could be the end of you. Then add on the fact you don't regain ammo when you die. I was shocked how much more careful I had to be compared to the later games where you become ridiculously overpowered. It did force me to be more creative with the weapons I had though. If this was Rift Apart I would have thrown a boogie bomb when I was overwhelmed. I've glazed this game so far but it's not perfect. No strafing at the beginning feels awkward. Ratchet doesn't have a traditional lock-on which can become annoying as hell. You have to get really close before Ratchet will start shooting at the enemy. Sometimes he just fucking doesn't. The most annoying thing is sometimes he doesn't grab onto edges when I feel like he should. There was a bit on the final level where I had to switch from jet mode to helicopter mode to make a high jump, which felt wrong. I didn't know where to put this, but this is Ratchet's best look in the series. I'm not a fan of putting armour on him. I prefer the simple look. Ultimately, this game still holds up. The simple structure is engaging, the creative weapons and gadgets stop the game from becoming boring. It has fantastic levels and art direction. The pace is spectacular, you get something new every 20 minutes. And the story is probably the best in the series. Ratchet goes on a great arc and has an interesting dynamic with Clank. It also helps the game is incredibly funny to this day. The first adventure has a personality that the rest of the series never quite captured. 20 plus years later, it still deserves its place among PS2's very best. Time to rank it. So where does it go? First question, is it better than Jak and Daxter and Sly Cooper? For me, yes. The story is stronger and the gadgets keep the gameplay fresh from start to finish. I genuinely didn't expect to rank it this high, but I'm putting Ratchet and Clank at number 6. It's above Requiem because I think the gameplay is more creative and it definitely has a better story, but I can't put it above DMC3, as that game had crazy gameplay and an amazing story to boot. New number 6. We'll have to see if Jak or Sly 2 can match this splendid first entry.